Hi, this is TalkRx with Dr. Neha, and I'm filming in Bali. And today's topic is a juicy one. It has to do with blended families and dealing with exes and the drama that can come up from that interchange. So I met this amazing couple on a flight recently, and I'm not sure how I meet people on flights and elevators, but somehow I do, and somehow we get into such amazing, deep discussions. And so today's question really came from sitting next to this lovely woman on the plane. So her and her husband were sitting next to me. So it was me, and then her husband and her, right? And so her name's Debbie. And she complained that her husband never stands up for her. He never defends her. So I said, well, can you tell me what you mean by that? And she said, absolutely. Like, for example, his ex-wife, him and his ex-wife have a few children. And I happened to be on the phone talking to their son's girlfriend. We were making some plans. And while we were doing that, his ex-wife, I see her driving up the driveway. She hasn't told us she's coming. She's completely unannounced. And while I'm on the phone with their son's ex-girlfriend, I say, oh my God, she's here. And I use her name. She's here, but I'm not ready for this. Like, I wish she would let us know before she came over. Now, she's telling me, I've been married to Frank for 35 years. So this isn't new. It's just that the drama continues. So she shows up unannounced, and I go downstairs after I hang up the phone. I go downstairs. I'm very polite to her. We have cordial exchanges, and then she leaves. Now, she wanted to also tell me that she knew she didn't just drop by, because you have to go in a subdivision, around a cul-de-sac, through the back in order to get to their house. So she was basically saying, I very much knew she planned to come over. You don't just stop by. We're not on a main road. So at this point, I can start to feel all the energy behind this, right, and all the history. So then she goes on to say, we then run into her at a formal dinner party a few months later. And I think everything's okay, so I lean in to give her, Debbie's leaning in to give the ex-wife, her usual greeting, which is a kiss, right, on the cheek. They're usually somewhat cordial to one another. And let me read my notes here for a second. She leans in to greet her, and the ex-wife physically pushes her away. And now Debbie is so surprised. She's so surprised, but she actually acts like nothing is wrong because they're in a public setting. And she doesn't think it's okay to, show any conflict, within the family in a public setting. And now his ex-wife proceeds to say things like, the kids can't stand you. I don't know why you try to talk to them. When you're not around, they tell me how much they can't stand you. And she's saying all of this in the middle of this formal dinner setting. So other people are around. Now, her current husband, right, is standing next to her while his ex-wife is saying all of this, and he's quiet. So she says to me, when she is so rude and she publicly humiliates me, how dare he just stand next to me and not defend me? Now, in the airplane, it was me on the aisle, her husband, and then her as she's speaking. So she's basically asking me to tell her husband to defend her. So I want to acknowledge, first of all, and this is what I said to her, I want to acknowledge how uncomfortable that situation was and how painful it must have been to feel publicly humiliated. And on top of that, feel like the only person who actually does have a powerful connection with the ex-wife would be her current husband, right? So he was such a sweet man, and he was really genuinely curious. He wanted to know, like, did I do something wrong? Because if there was something I should have done, could you please tell me? So what I said was, I'll talk about you in a moment. Why don't I first focus on Debbie, and let's talk about what just happened. So I asked her, where do you think this initially went wrong? And she said, well, when his ex-wife just showed up unannounced. And I said, okay, so have you ever made any agreements together, you and your husband, with his ex-wife, about when to come over, that you'd like advance notice and how much? Have you made any, rules or agreements around what works for both of you? And they both shook their head no. So I said, the first problem is you have a set of agreements in your head that you're expecting somebody else to just know. And she said, but she's so rude. She should know that it's uncomfortable for me when she comes around. And what I said to her was, I hear how painful it is, and you might want to consider that it might be uncomfortable for her too, and she might be trying, right? She might be trying anyways, so she feels like she's being brave, and it comes across as rude or inconsiderate in invading your own privacy, right? The second thing is, how do you think she found out about what was happening? And she said, well, I was talking to her son's girlfriend, but I didn't mean to tell her. It just kind of came out of me. And I said, okay, so it came out of you. And then what did you do next? And she said, well, I went downstairs and I just acted like everything was normal. And I said, I think that might be where the disconnect is. Because when you went downstairs and you didn't have an honest conversation with her, that might have been the time that when she left and she heard about it through her son's girlfriend or her son, she may have felt a really big betrayal or violation. Could you see how that might be true? And she said, yeah, definitely. But she didn't have to humiliate me. And I said, no, she didn't. It's just that most people sit on uncomfortable feelings until they explode like a volcano. And it's almost like if you have an uncomfortable experience or uncomfortable emotions, most people push them under the water like a beach ball under the water and hold it there. Listen, there's only so long you can hold it there until your lactic acid builds up in your arm and the beach ball comes flying up at the most inopportune moment. And I think that's what happened. So I am going to have to say that I think this isn't your husband's issue to defend you, because the truth is, in the middle of a dinner party with your ex-wife across from you and your current wife next to you, and the matrix of your son's girlfriend having relayed information, right? That's a pretty sticky situation, and I'm pretty sure he was not going to find a way out. So I would say that the best way to handle this would be you, when you came downstairs, saying, hey, I just noticed I was surprised when you stopped by, and I was on the phone with, your son's girlfriend, and it kind of came out a little awkwardly for me. So I just wanted to share that with you because I noticed that I feel our exchange is better and stronger when we plan our time together. Or if you don't have the relationship to make that happen, that's when you ask your husband to join you or have a conversation outside of this experience, so that you can tell the truth and that this person hears it from you and your husband, right? Rather than hearing it through a third party, because that always upsets people. So I hope this story was helpful. We have modern families now, and they're complex. And I gotta say, you gotta go back to the basics. Talking to people and telling them the truth can eliminate so much pain down the line. So if you found that someone has had, a tough interaction with you and you thought it was really inappropriate, follow the crumbs backwards and ask yourself if you can connect the dots to how you might have been able to show up differently in order to change the outcome. So thank you for watching. This is Dr. Neha on TalkRx from Bali. Please leave a message on the blog below or send me a tweet at #AskDrNeha, AskDoctorNeha. Thanks. See you next time.